A widow sold her last bread to save a boy. Then his billionaire father changed her life forever. In the crowded city of Enugu, there lived a young widow named Amara. Every morning before sunrise, Amara woke up in her tiny rented room, tied her wrapper firmly around her waist, and began preparing the bread and akara she sold beside a busy roadside junction. It was not the life she once imagined for herself. Years earlier, Amara had been full of hope. She had studied food processing in school and dreamed of owning a small bakery one day. But life had turned against her very quickly. Her husband died after a factory accident, and everything she had built around love and hope collapsed at once. The little money they had saved disappeared during his treatment. The house rent became difficult, food became uncertain, and the dream she once carried proudly in her heart slowly became something she only remembered in silence. Now, survival was all that mattered. That Thursday morning started like every other day. Amara arranged her tray carefully. Fresh bread, akara wrapped in paper, small bottles of water, sachets of groundnut. She stood by the roadside, calling to workers, bus drivers, traders, and students rushing to begin their day. By noon, the hot sun burned strongly over the city. Sweat covered her forehead. Her feet hurt. But she remained there, smiling politely at customers because she knew one thing very well. If she did not sell, she would not eat. As the hours passed, business moved slowly. A few people bought from her, but not enough. By evening, only one loaf of bread remained on her tray. It was her last bread of the day. Amara looked at it carefully. That loaf mattered. The money from that bread would help her add something to the rent she already owed. Her landlady had warned her that morning. If she failed to complete the payment by the weekend, her room would be locked. Amara had begged for more time, but the woman had grown tired of hearing promises. So that last bread was not just bread. To Amara, it was a small piece of tomorrow. The sky had already begun to darken when she decided to start going home. She lifted the tray and stepped away from the roadside. Then, as she crossed near an unfinished building close to the junction, she heard a weak sound. It was the cry of a child. Amara stopped immediately. At first, she thought maybe she had heard wrongly. The road was noisy. Vehicles were passing. Keke riders were shouting for passengers. But then she heard it again. A soft cry. Painful, frightened, tired. She slowly turned toward the unfinished building. Inside, near a broken cement block, sat a little boy who looked no older than 7. His clothes were expensive, but they were now dusty and stained. His face was wet with tears. One of his slippers was missing, and his small hands were shaking. Amara quickly lowered her tray and moved closer. "My child," she said gently. "What happened? Why are you sitting here alone?" The boy looked up at her with frightened eyes. His lips were dry. "I am hungry," he whispered. Amara's heart tightened. She knelt down in front of him. "Where is your mother? Where is your father?" The boy tried to speak again, but his voice was weak. "I don't know," he said. "I ran, then I got lost." Amara looked around immediately, expecting an adult to appear from somewhere. But nobody came. The place around them was empty except for the sound of distant traffic and gathering wind. She turned back to the boy. "What is your name?" "Tomi," he said softly. Amara touched his forehead and became alarmed. His body was warm, very warm. The child was hungry, scared, and already burning with fever. Without thinking further, Amara picked up the last loaf of bread from her tray, opened it, broke it gently, and handed it to him. "Eat slowly," she said. The boy grabbed the bread with both hands and began eating like someone who had not seen food in a long time. He did not speak. He only ate. Amara watched him quietly. That loaf had been meant to help pay her rent. But in that moment, looking at the child, she knew she could not keep it. After a few bites, the boy began coughing. His hands trembled harder. Then suddenly, his body slumped sideways. "Tommy!" Amara quickly held him before he fell completely to the ground. Fear rose inside her. This was no longer about hunger alone. The boy needed help immediately. Amara looked toward the road. Rain had started falling. Not heavy yet, but enough to make people hurry away. She stood up, carried the boy in her arms with difficulty, and rushed toward a nearby private clinic she knew at the end of the street. By the time she reached the clinic, rain was pouring heavily. She entered breathlessly. "Please help this child," she cried. "He collapsed on the road." A nurse looked at the boy and quickly called another staff member. They carried him inside and placed him on a bed. A doctor came shortly after and began checking him. Amara stood there, soaked by rain, breathing hard, waiting for someone to tell her what would happen next. A few minutes later, the doctor returned. "He is severely weak," the doctor said. "His sugar level dropped badly, and he has fever. We need to treat him now." Amara nodded quickly. "Please do it." The doctor looked at her. "You need to make a deposit." Amara froze. Her hand slowly went to the knot in her wrapper where she kept the money she had made that day. It was small, very small. Not enough for rent. Not enough for comfort. Barely enough for treatment. For one brief moment, she hesitated. Then she remembered the child's dry lips, weak voice, and trembling hands. She untied the cloth and brought out the money. "This is all I have," she said quietly. "Please start with it." The doctor took the money and nodded. "We will do what we can." Amara sat on a wooden bench outside the treatment room while rain beat loudly against the roof. Her tray remained beside her, now almost empty. That night, she did not go home. She stayed in the clinic corridor, waiting for news about a child she had never seen before that evening. Hours passed. Finally, close to midnight, the doctor came out again. "He is stable now," he said. "The fever is still there, but he is no longer in danger." Amara closed her eyes in relief and whispered, "Thank God." The doctor looked at her with surprise. "Are you his mother?" Amara shook her head. "No." "His aunt?" "No." The doctor frowned slightly. "Then who are you?" Amara gave a tired smile. "I was just the woman who found him." Early the next morning, Tommy opened his eyes. Amara was sitting near the bed. When he saw her, his frightened expression softened a little. "You stayed?" he asked weakly. Amara smiled. "Yes. How could I leave you alone?" The boy looked around the room slowly, as if trying to remember everything. Then tears gathered in his eyes. "I want my daddy," he whispered. Amara moved closer. "Tell me your full name, my child. Maybe we can find him." The boy swallowed. "My name is Thomasin Okafor." Amara repeated it in her head. Okafor. The name sounded familiar, but she was too tired to think deeply about it. "Do you know your father's phone number?" Tommy shook his head. "Do you know where you live?" He shook his head again, then spoke slowly. "We were going somewhere. My nanny stopped the car.
She was shouting on the phone. I got down. She told me to wait. Then I became afraid when 2 men came. I ran. I kept running. Then I could not find anybody.
Amara listened carefully. This was serious. She went outside and borrowed a phone from the clinic receptionist. Then she called the nearest police station and explained what had happened. She also gave Tommy's full name. Less than an hour later, 2 police officers arrived. They took a report, asked several questions, and looked carefully at the boy. One of them stepped aside and made a phone call. His expression changed immediately. He returned and looked at Amara with surprise. "Madam," he said, "this child has been reported missing since yesterday afternoon." Amara stared at him.
Missing?
The officer nodded. "His father is Chief Kelechi Okafor." Amara felt something shift inside her. The name landed heavily in her chest. She knew it now. Everybody in Enugu and beyond had heard of Chief Kelechi Okafor. He was one of the richest businessmen in the country. He owned transport companies, warehouses, real estate, and several factories. People spoke about him with respect, fear, or admiration. And the little boy on the bed was his son. Within 2 hours, black SUVs drove into the clinic compound. Security men stepped out first. Then a tall man wearing a dark caftan and a face full of worry rushed inside. The moment Tommy saw him, he cried out, "Daddy!" Chief Kelechi moved straight to the bed and held the boy tightly. For a long moment, he said nothing. He only held his son. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. The powerful businessman, known for his stern voice and commanding presence, looked like any father who had spent the night fearing the worst. He turned to the police. Then his eyes fell on Amara. One officer spoke first. "Sir, she is the woman who found him." Chief Kelechi looked at her carefully from head to toe. Her wet sandals, her old faded blouse, her tired face, the near-empty tray by the wall. "You found my son?" he asked. Amara nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "How?" She explained everything. The cry inside the unfinished building, the hunger, the fever, the bread, the clinic, the money she had paid. Chief Kelechi listened without interrupting. His face remained unreadable. When she finished, he reached into his pocket, brought out a thick bundle of money, and held it toward her. "Take this," he said, "for what you did." Amara looked at the money, then looked at him. Slowly, she shook her head. "No, sir." Chief Kelechi frowned. "Why?" Amara spoke softly. "I did not help him because of money." The room became quiet. Even the officers looked surprised. Chief Kelechi lowered his hand slowly. He was a man used to solving problems quickly. In his world, money opened doors, ended discomfort, and settled gratitude. But this woman in front of him had refused it without hesitation. Tommy suddenly reached for Amara's hand. "Daddy," he said weakly. "She gave me her bread." Chief Kelechi looked at his son, then back at Amara again. This time, his gaze changed. Not just gratitude, respect. He nodded once. "Thank you," he said. It was a simple sentence, but it came from deep inside him. Amara smiled faintly. "You are welcome, sir." She thought that was the end of it. She was wrong. That same evening, after leaving the clinic, Amara returned home. Her body was weak from hunger and lack of sleep. Her heart was tired. but a small part of her felt peaceful because at least the child was safe. As she entered the compound, her landlady was already waiting. "Where is my money?" the woman asked sharply. Amara tried to explain that something unexpected had happened. She spoke about the child, the clinic, and the emergency. But the landlady had no patience left. "Story will not pay rent," she snapped. "You have till tomorrow morning. If I don't see my balance, you will not sleep here again." Amara entered her room quietly that night and sat in darkness. The little she had managed to earn was gone. The bread she could have sold was gone. Her body ached. Her future looked empty again. The next morning, she carried her tray back to the roadside. But bad news waited there too. The market task force had come earlier. Because Amara had failed to pay her roadside selling fee for 2 days, they seized the wooden stand she usually used. Without it, selling became harder. Customers passed her by more easily. The day moved slowly, and almost nothing sold. By sunset, Amara knew the truth. She would not raise the rent. When she returned home, the padlock was already on her door. Her few belongings had been brought outside and placed on the ground. A mattress, a small bag of clothes, a pot, a framed photograph of her late husband. Amara stood still. For a moment, she could not even cry. The other tenants looked on in silence. Some pitied her. Others simply turned away because poverty had taught them that another person's pain could become yours if you stared at it for too long. Amara sat beside her things as darkness slowly covered the compound. She had nowhere to go. Across town, in a mansion surrounded by high walls and bright security lights, Chief Kelechi sat in his study thinking about the woman from the clinic. He had tried to focus on work, but his mind kept returning to her. Not because she was poor, not because she had refused money, but because she had done something rare. She had given when giving hurt. That was different. He called his personal assistant, Namdi. "I want you to find the woman who brought Tommy to the clinic," he said. "Yes, sir. Do not insult her with assumptions. Find out who she is, how she lives, what she needs, and tell me the truth." By the next evening, Namdi returned with a file. "Her name is Amara Eze," he said. "Widow, no children." She studied food processing, but never got stable work. Her husband died 4 years ago. She sells bread and akara near Ogi Road. She was locked out of her room yesterday because of unpaid rent. Chief Kelechi remained silent. Namdi continued. "There is more, sir. Her late husband worked in one of the supply factories that used to serve one of your older warehouse companies." Chief Kelechi looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Namdi opened the file. "The man died after an industrial accident. Compensation was delayed through contractors and never fully paid. Your direct office may not have known then because that branch was under regional handlers at the time." Chief Kelechi's expression hardened. So this woman had already suffered indirectly under a system connected to one of his businesses. Then life pushed her down again and again. Yet she still used her last bread and last money to save his son. That night, Chief Kelechi did not sleep easily. The next morning, he drove personally to the compound where Amara had been locked out. He found her sitting on a low bench near her belongings. She had spent the night there. When she saw him, she stood up quickly in surprise. "Good morning, sir." Chief Kelechi looked at the bag beside her, the mattress, the tiredness in her eyes. "You slept here?" Amara gave a faint smile. "It is only for now, sir. I will find somewhere." Chief Kalechi looked at the landlady, who had suddenly become very polite the moment she saw the expensive vehicle. Then he turned back to Amara. "Come with me," he said. Amara became uneasy. "Sir?" "I want to show you something." At first, she hesitated, but the calm voice of Tommy, who was also inside the vehicle, changed her mind.
"Auntie Bread,"
the boy called happily from the back seat.
"please come."
Amara could not help smiling. She entered the SUV. An hour later, they arrived at a modest building in a quiet part of the city. It was not a mansion. It was not flashy. But it was clean, painted freshly, and had a wide baking hall in the back with modern ovens still covered in wrapping. Amara looked around in confusion. Chief Kalechi stood beside her. "Tell me," he said, "if life had not gone wrong, what would you have chosen to do?" Amara looked at him, then at the empty hall. She answered honestly,
"I would have owned a bakery."
Chief Kalechi nodded slowly. "I know." Amara stared at him. He continued, "I asked about you. I also learned something painful about your husband's death and the negligence that followed in a company linked to my business network. I cannot erase your past, but I can choose what happens next." Amara remained silent. Chief Kalechi gestured toward the building. "This place was originally meant to be a storage annex. I changed my mind. I want it turned into a working bakery and training center." Amara's eyes widened. He looked directly at her. "And I want you to run it." For a second, she thought she had heard wrongly. "Me?" "Yes." Amara shook her head quickly.
"Sir, I am only a roadside seller."
Chief Kalechi answered calmly. "No. You are a trained woman life pushed off her path. There is a difference." Her lips trembled slightly, but she still could not believe it. Chief Kalechi continued, "You will receive full training support, business guidance, staff, and salary from the beginning. But this will not be charity. You will work. You will learn the financial side. You will build the brand. And if you prove yourself, this bakery will belong to you in partnership over time." Amara's eyes filled with tears. She had expected maybe rent money, maybe help, maybe a small gift. But not this. Not a second chance shaped like the dream she had buried long ago. "Why?" she whispered. Chief Kalechi looked at his son, then back at her. "Because my son is alive. Because you helped when nobody was watching. Because dignity deserves more than pity. And because people like you should not remain at the mercy of luck forever." Amara could not speak again for some time. When she finally did, her voice was shaking. "I will not disappoint you, sir." The following months changed everything. Amara moved into a small staff apartment near the bakery site. It was simple but comfortable. For the first time in years, she slept without fear of being chased out in the morning. Then the real work began. It was not easy. Chief Kalechi kept his word. He did not hand her success without effort. Professional bakers came to train her team. Account officers taught her records, pricing, supply control, and customer management. She made mistakes. She corrected them. She learned fast. Every day she arrived before others and left after most had gone. The workers began respecting her because she did not behave like someone rescued by fortune. She behaved like someone rebuilding her life with both hands.
Tommy visited often after school. Whenever he entered, he ran past everyone shouting, "Where's Auntie Bread?" The name remained. It made everybody smile. Soon the bakery opened. They called it Last Bread Bakery. Amara had resisted the name at first because it reminded her of pain. But Chief Kalechi said something she never forgot. "The thing you gave in sacrifice should not remain a symbol of loss," he told her. "Let it become a symbol of beginning."
The opening day drew a crowd. Neighbors came, traders came, drivers came. Even women from Amara's old area came after hearing the story had spread quietly across the city. Fresh bread filled the air with warm smell. Akara sizzled, tea steamed, and on the front wall, under the bakery sign, was a short line. "One act of kindness can feed many lives." Business started well. Then it grew. What made the bakery different was not only the bread. It was Amara. She insisted on hiring widows, abandoned women, and young girls who needed real work. Some were trained in baking, some in packaging, some in sales. For the first time, many of them began earning steady income. Months later, Chief Kalechi came for a financial review. He sat in the office while Amara presented the numbers herself. Sales, expenses, supply costs, profit margin, customer growth, expansion ideas. When she finished, Chief Kalechi smiled faintly. "You have changed," he said. Amara smiled back. "No, sir. I think this is who I was before life interrupted me." Chief Kalechi nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Then he pushed a document across the table. Amara looked at it. It was a partnership agreement. Her eyes lifted in shock. Chief Kalechi spoke calmly. "You have met every condition earlier than expected. As from today, you officially own a major share in this business." Amara stared at the paper. Her hands trembled. "Sir." "No," he said gently. "Today, call me by my name. Partners do not remain on their knees forever." Tears rolled down her face. Not the tears of grief she had cried for years. These were different. These were the tears of a woman finally meeting the version of herself she thought had died long ago. 1 year later, Last Bread Bakery opened its second branch. The launch was bigger than the first. There were cameras, community leaders, workers in clean uniforms, music, celebration. But the most touching moment came when little Tommy, now healthy and smiling brightly, stood before the crowd with a microphone in his hand. He pointed proudly at Amara and said, "This is the woman who saved me when she had almost nothing." The crowd became quiet. Then he added, "My daddy says many people have money, but not everybody has a good heart. That day, she gave me her last bread. Today, she gives bread to many people." Applause broke out everywhere. Amara stood still, unable to speak. Among the people clapping were women she had employed, staff she had trained, customers who had become loyal, and neighbors whose children now ate from the bakery every morning before school. Her life had changed. But more importantly, through her, other lives had changed too. That evening, after the celebration ended, Amara stepped outside the bakery and stood alone for a moment. The sun was setting softly across the city. Chief Kalechi joined her. "You are quiet," he said. Amara smiled. "I was just remembering that night," she said. "The rain, the empty tray, the boy inside that building." Chief Kalechi looked at her carefully. "Do you regret it?" Amara turned to him. "Never." He nodded slowly. "Good," he said, "because that decision did more than save my son. It revealed you to yourself." Amara looked through the bakery glass at the workers cleaning inside. Then she spoke softly. I used to think kindness made people weaker in this world. I thought life punished good people too much. Chief Kalechi asked, And now? Amara smiled through tears. Now I think kindness does not always return quickly. But when it returns, it sometimes comes back carrying doors you never knew existed. Chief Kalechi smiled. For once, there was no business calculation in his face, only truth. You earned every one of those doors, he said. Dear friends, life can become so hard that people begin to protect the little they have with fear. And yes, sometimes the world can be cruel. Sometimes good people suffer. Sometimes help comes late. But this story reminds us of something powerful. Your lowest moment does not always show your final destination. And the small good you do, even when nobody knows your name, can begin a future bigger than your pain. Amara gave away her last bread because a hungry child needed it more than she did. She did not know that the child belonged to a billionaire. She did not know that one act of compassion would pull her back toward her own dream. She only knew one thing. In that moment, helping was right. And sometimes, that is how miracles begin. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many people around us are one act of kindness away from survival, hope, or a second chance. Thank you so much for listening. And remember this always. A person may lose money. A person may lose comfort. A person may even lose the road they planned to follow. But when courage and compassion remain alive in the heart, life still has something beautiful it can build from the ruins.